Stirling Talks with Wilson on Stirling Community Radio.
Hello, good morning, everyone. This is Stirling Talks. Wilson here, and oh my gosh, can you believe, by far the biggest name we've had on the show. Welcome, Stirling Community Radio, Stirling Talks. Graeme from Wet. Hello, hi.
Hey, Wilson, how you doing?
It is
good to be here. Good to be back in the home country and all that. And nice to be here.
Yeah, it is great to have you on here. It's definitely a thrill to chat with you here on Stirling Talks. And yeah, let's just get the business out of the way so that all the people behind the scenes are happy. You all are playing Albert Hall's coming up on the 20th of May. Now, whenever you're listening to this, it's either coming up later in May or we're going to replay this on the day of. Tickets available. Make sure you get them. Wet.co.uk or sterlingevents.org. Again, the 20th of May, that is coming up. They've also got a couple of gigs really all around the area. I know Paisley later that week as well on the 22nd. So if you listen to this, you can't make that Stirling date, go there. Okay, there's all the business out of the way.
Nicely done, man. Hey, make my job so easy, so you do, man.
Get it out of there. I know how it works. So with that said, the people listening to this, they've seen you before. This is a little bit different. This is an acoustic show. What can the fans expect at this show?
Well, it's not totally unexpected. If you're familiar with Wet and you've been to a concert before, and at some part in that big gig where we've got the whole band, the whole bombast going, we strip it back and sort of just turn it on its head a bit. And for me, it's always a kind of really, you have to adjust your ears, when you do this, because you've had all the drummers and the guitarist and everybody kind of being the musician hero type thing, and you strip it back down to acoustic guitar, man, and it's like being back in your bedroom, man, and in the blink of an eye. So I like it because it changes the dynamic, but it enables the song to breathe a little differently, and sort of, certain songs won't take that kind of treatment, but you hope that in the writing of the songs way back in the days, that it is like being back in the bedroom. And so we decided that we were going to take it out on the road. And really, I've kind of done that in the past. I've sort of went out as myself and just played the songs on acoustic guitar, and really it's a difficult thing to do because there's nowhere to hide. When I was talking about the bombast, that's great because you hide behind a lot of the mistakes, man. And so in terms of that, it's very magnified, it's close up, we've taken it more intimate, because that's what you're ultimately, when you play all these big gigs, man, if you can bring that down back to a dynamic where it feels like you're in somebody's front room or you're in a smaller gig, I think people nowadays are ready for that sort of thing. If you just need to look at guys like Bruce Springsteen, who did the off-Broadway show, starts talking about where do these songs come from, Bruce? And that's the kind of things that I'm interested in, and so it gives us a chance to, let the guys in the band go and have a back seat. Hey, take the year off, man. Take the year off. We're going to go out and do the work. So it's nice to just go out there and try and give the songs a different kind of, shine a different light on them.
Well, and I'll just say, if you've never been to an acoustic show, if you know a band is the big bombastic, as you say, and you see them doing something acoustic, I think you're hitting something there, because I think now these days, real music fans, we want authentic. We want something that's real. And brother, you ain't getting any more authentic than just up there acoustic doing that for real. And it's real artists. I saw, when I was younger, I saw Tony Bennett one time in a big theater, and he had them turn the monitors off. I'm going, what is he doing? And that's a real artist right there. You do that in just the pure musicianship.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of bands that are doing that these days. So credit to you all for doing it.
Listen, it's what we've been doing for a long time. So if I couldn't do it, I'd be worried, man. You know what I mean? So we've been doing this for a long, long time, and yeah, we've been lucky enough. We came up just after sort of punk rock, and that really kind of enabled us to kind of do that thing where you're young and you're a teenager and you've got all this enthusiasm and all this youth and exuberance and all that. So we just went out there without even thinking about it. Then then we sort of had some success, and then you're like, oh, now we need to go and play gigs. Now we need to go and prove that we can do it. And so in terms of that, we did cut our teeth early on, being in front of people and learning our craft. Put it any way you want, but it's learning how to do it. And so in terms of that, it's mildly terrifying to go out with an acoustic guitar, where you're like, oh. And it's a wee bit like this. You sort of, I always remember just before I go on stage, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this immense nervous energy? All these kind of things. Am I good enough? I don't think I'm quite good enough. My voice isn't quite it, And then you come off stage after doing it, and you go, right, when are we doing it again, man? When are we doing it again? So, that's the thing that we sort of learned back in the early days, and it's really been a good grounding, and it's just us. Maybe it's time to go back into your teenage bedroom and, let me, don't jump to conclusions here, but, with the guitar strapped on, and, this is how the song started. This is how they were created way back in the day. Little did I know that in 30 odd years' time, we'd be kind of going, Graeme, you better get this kind of good, because you might be presenting it in this sort of way in 35 years' time or whatever it is. And so in terms of that, it's, as I said at the beginning, some songs, you go into a big studio and you use all the studio techniques, so sometimes they don't translate into the acoustic, and, that's part of the battle as well. What ones sound good in acoustic? So we did an album called Strings Attached last year. And it's just basically that. It's just stripping it down and trying to show the song in a different light. And, from that, the idea was, why don't we take this on the road? So listen, we're dipping our toe in. We don't know how it's going to go. We've got a tour that we go around Europe at the beginning of May, and then we come back to Wales and start the acoustic tour. So we're kind of, as usual, we're making it up as we go along, and I've started talking about set lists to the guys, so we realise that we've got a lot of work to do. And,
I was going to ask about that, because I'm a big fan of set lists, and I did check out some of the recent ones, and obviously just a lot of hits on there, and giving the fans what they want. It's also kind of cool though, because the fans want to hear what they want to hear, but you're able to work in a few little new things here and there as well. And to me, for the fans, the longtime fans, to be able to hear something and go, well, hang on, I haven't heard that, but I like that. And then here's something they know. It's a good way to kind of ease them into some of the new stuff if they haven't been exposed to it yet.
Well, that's always it, Wilson. You as a musician and as a songwriter, I'm always thinking the newest song that I've written is the best thing I've ever done in my life. It eclipses all the stuff I've done in the last 40 years, and we all know that isn't true. But I think that it's important for us to, do new songs. That's the bottom line there. We can't go on nowadays and say, hey. I mean, it's the other way around now, isn't it? We used to go on tour and we used to have an album. We would, release the album, and then we would go on tour and we would play the album, and people would, people wanted that, Yeah. Nowadays, after 30 odd years of doing this, 40 years nearly of doing this, people come to out for a specific thing. They know what they're going to get. We're not going to say, right, okay, there's Love Is All Around. We've played it first. Now we're going to play the new album. I hope you like our new direction. That's not what I'm into. I saw Sting the other year, and he said, right, and he's playing all these evergreen songs, man. He's playing all these big hits, and then he says,
a little bit of a catalogue.
Yeah, and then he says, well, this is the bit that you haven't checked out, but if you check the tickets, it says when you bought the ticket, you have to listen to a couple of new songs, And he was being facetious, but he was making a fair point. And I thought, but it's like, yeah, as a songwriter and as a musician, you're always trying to kind of put stuff out there. But I mean, I'm old enough and ugly enough to tell you, Wilson, just between you and I, when we usually play one of our new songs, there's usually a mass exodus either to the bar or to the toilet, man. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
I don't really know this song, but you try and do it in a way, as you've said, where you do two big massive hits or two big songs that people will know and love, and then you slot
yeah,
maybe a medley of the new song in between these things. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And in that sort of sense, that's a way of doing it. I understand that. You know, I used to go and see bands and hate it when they played their new. Like, oh no, this is the new album bit. This is it. Oh no, we're going to get 25 minutes of stuff that you haven't absorbed yet, so you don't
yeah.
know where it's going, and you don't know it sounds like the best thing I've ever heard, and it sounds like the worst thing I've ever heard at the same time, if that can be true. But so we have to bleed in a new song every now and then sometimes over the last tour we've played that one new song, and it sort of becomes part of the set. It's not a massive direction, or let's go down here for half an hour while we bore the crowd senseless with our new material. It's mainly showing them the different colours that we've got, and really, in order for us to make it interesting for the people, I think we've got to
Yeah.
mix it up for ourselves, and then it's
Well, that's
interesting for us.
that's putting on a show. I mean, you're putting on a show, and you know what people want to hear, but you also have to fulfill yourself as an artist and all that. But I was going to ask, like, you can actually see people leaving for the beer line or for the bathroom or the toilet or whatever. They actually can
Yeah.
see you when you do that when you leave. And so please don't everybody get up all at once and go. Just spread it out a little bit. But for you though, there's got to be a couple moments where you're playing that new little bit there and you see somebody going, oh, and you see a little light bulb go off, and that kind of keeps you going, doesn't it?
It does, and the whole advent of online music and people with apps. We live in an app world, unfortunately. But and it's not to say that this is a bad place. There's bad aspects about it, but let's face it, there was bad aspects about every part of life
Yeah.
that we do. You've got to embrace the good and you've got to embrace the new, I think. So there's nothing, if you think about it, this has now become our record collection, and I'm holding up a phone here, and it's like that's how handy can that be? It's amazing a couple of movements on your phone, and you've got an encyclopedic number of songs that you can just go and reference almost instantaneously. So that's kind of amazing because, yeah, you do see people. People will use their phones in the gig and kind of go, oh, is this a new album?
Yeah.
What's this?
Yeah.
So yeah, that does kind of make me feel that the band isn't just kind of being a tribute to itself. It's, there is that aspect of it, but there's also other aspects of it where I think the whole point of doing this for me is to try and kind of showcase some new ideas that we have, and it keeps me sane, and it keeps the gig sane in a sense, man. You know what I mean? The gig that we play has a conscience too, you know what I mean?
Right.
And we need to be careful with that, I think, and need to kind of, embrace it and kind of try and nurture it. And this is a way of doing that for me. So, yeah, listen, new music is difficult nowadays. We all understand that. But as I say, it's not like we're gonna and sort of reinventing the wheel. And you talked about our set list. We did do a version of Fleetwood Mac's The Chain,
Right.
which, and it wasn't my idea, honest, being the bass player, that bass line at the end, everyone will know that. It's the start of Formula One, which was the theme tune back in the UK. So everybody knows this. Everybody's kind of, it's embedded in their kind of psyche, man, for some reason. So when it wasn't my idea, it was Kevin came and said, why don't we do a version of that? We can do the three parts. And I just thought, it's lucky I'm not a dog, because he would have saw my tail wagging, do you know what I mean? And I'm like trying to be blasé like that. Whoa, I can just see me doing that bass line at the end. It's going to, my ego is getting a massive massage at the moment. Yeah, it's fantastic. So, we brought that, and everyone knows that song. Everyone loves that song, especially if you're a Wet Wet fan. So it was kind of, it's nice to do something like that,
Yeah.
It is a kind of departure for us in a sense. Plus, it is an acoustic driven song. Sure, there is the bass line at the end and the drums and all that do come in, but there's a whole kind of 2.5 minutes of just blistering
Just
Lindsey Buckingham.
just jamming it out, man. You're just
It's
jamming.
just
That's it. It's a good jam.
it's it's a rocker, and it's a
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful song, and he's one of our favourite guitarists. Weirdly enough, when we were in California, when we recorded some of our stuff, we were in a studio called Ocean Way, and Lindsey Buckingham was there, and we had all our gear there, and he came in and knocked on the door and said, "Listen, you don't mind if I borrow one of your acoustic guitars? It's got a Nashville tuning type thing that Graeme had put on one of the guitars." And that's another time I was glad I wasn't a dog, because when Lindsey Buckingham's asking you for a guitar, man, my tail, I would have been, yes, yes, yes. You know what I mean? So, I mean, these sort of things, as we spoke at the beginning, sometimes you find yourself trying to do new things, and you eventually come back to where you were 15, 20, 30 years ago, man. You do the full circle.
Well,
So,
talking about the full circle there, and before we went on air here, and thanks for mentioning the phone to people listening on the radio, because he was holding up his phone right there. We talked about the new stuff. We're gonna go back a little bit, and I looked it up on my phone because I went, hang on, did I do that? Yes, I did. I mentioned a few times here on the show, I sound American. I'm not. I spent a lot of time over there, and clearly it rubbed off on me, but only the good bits. So it was 2014, and I'm in North Carolina, and I'm doing a TV show, and there is a massive, massive hurricane coming.
mhm.
And I remembered this, and from your 2012 release, I think you've got a song on there called Hurricane.
Oh, yeah.
And it worked well. So I don't know what the music rights or whatever were back then, but you may have made like a quarter of a pence or something on me using a little clip from that song, because it worked really well with the craziness of literally.
Ah,
There's a line in there where the lights are out, the power's out, and we had the lights out and all that stuff. So that was
yeah.
one of my little memories that popped up right there from
Brilliant,
one of
man.
the releases
Brilliant.
there.
Oh,
So that,
that's really nice to hear. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I mean, with a name like Wet as well. I used to have a Google setup that flagged up any time that where it get mentioned anywhere in the internet, but I had to take it off, because any time there was any hurricanes or any severe weather, man, it was just that's
yeah,
all
I
I was
bet.
getting was like weather reports, man. But yeah, I mean, that's nice to hear that.
Yeah.
That your music goes out there, and that brings me right back to why we do this. you know, I don't think I've ever been in North Carolina in my life. I've been round the edges and all kind of in the vicinity, but I've never been there. But my music has, and
Yeah.
something there, and maybe it does nothing at all, and maybe it does go in and hit people in a way, and it's fantastic. I think
Well,
that's a beautiful thing about the internet and music.
not to get all hippy dippy and everything, but when you create something and all that, you never really know. It goes out into the ether, and you never really know where it's going to end up or anything like that. And I
Yeah.
was on the radio in the States as well, and in North Carolina, South Carolina, and there's a band there called the Avett Brothers, and I knew them when they were nothing. You may have seen them on the Grammy Awards a couple times years
Yeah.
ago. They did the thing with Bob Dylan, and it was funny
Yes.
for leads, and they got a song on a TV show, and it really just kind of just propelled them. And it seems like these days a lot of artists, a lot of bands are trying to get their songs on a movie soundtrack or on a TV show, because it goes all over the place.
Yeah.
You've got a little bit of experience with that, haven't you?
We have. I mean,
Ever so
yeah.
slightly.
Well, we went to the record company and said, "Can you get us the theme tune to a James Bond movie?" And this is back in the day, and
Yeah.
they said, "Well, no, we can't get you that, but what we can get you is this movie called Four Weddings and a Funeral," and it wasn't out yet. And we were just going to be part of the soundtrack, so we weren't going to be part of the movie. So of course, you know, as well as being a wee bit upset about not getting James Bond, we thought, well, will we do this? And they gave us the option of Love Is All Around, which is a Trog song, Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive, and Barry Manilow, Can't Smile Without You. So it was a kind of no-brainer, because, I didn't have any history with Love Is All Around. I didn't even know the song. I wasn't familiar with it. I was familiar with the Trogs. So I thought, well, we can take this song and instantly I knew we'd make it better, because sonically, a lot of these songs in the 60s, they don't sound that great. The Trog song is a good song, but it sounds awful tinny to my ears. It sounds sort of transistor radio time, and thin. And I thought, well, we've got the technology nowadays that at least it'll kind of sound better sonically. And we recycled a bit of a song we'd been working on that we thought was good, but we couldn't take it. We couldn't finish it. We just had and that's the intro that you hear, that's not part of the Trog song. That was just part of something. So it immediately puts it into a different key. And so that changes everything as well. And so there was all these things kind of going on, and we were like, all right, let's do the Trog song. Let's use this recycled bit. When we add that in, it changes the key of the song and pushes it somewhere different. And suddenly we were in this, we did it really quickly. It's a bit like sometimes your best stuff comes around really sort of instantaneously, and it's almost like you don't need to do any work. It just sort of falls onto your lap, and you go, well, where did that come from, And that was really what had happened on that session. So come the end of that day, we've got a wee studio in Glasgow. We did it there. We just did demos there, and it was like, and then we thought, this will make a nice B-side, and for the people that are listening that don't know what B-sides were, they were the other side singles that you released that used to go to radio stations, and so we thought it would make a nice B-side or an extra track. So of course, to our surprise, everyone that was kind of listening to it and sort of coming back to us was saying, this is better than a B-side, and of course you can't, we didn't want to argue with that. We just said, absolutely, let's go with the flow. Where's it going to take us? And if somebody had said to us at the beginning of that session, this is going to be your big massive hit, we would have thought completely differently about it and said, right, let's do all these things to it and let's try and so of course we didn't have any of that baggage there. We were just doing something, dare I say it, for the sheer joy of doing it, of making music. And there you go. As you say, it took everyone by surprise, even us. Usually the band are like, no, we knew this was good. It's like the Beatles movie as well. You watch that and sometimes I think they don't know how good they were, until the advent of time. We've got all this, the hindsight and the 2020 vision that we can now see. They never knew how good they were, and we never knew what we were sitting on there. This was just something that kind of came together very quickly. It was sort of, the record company then pounced on it and put it out there, and then it just sort of went out there and grew arms and legs and sort of did what it did without us doing anything. We were just the conduit that enabled it to happen.
I mean, just went everywhere, that song. And it didn't, I mean, it helped a bit that the movie was quite good too, I thought. So that was good. It was a great movie. So yeah.
It's what you talk about, when the brothers went out and did that thing and it became part of a Netflix thing, or it became part of a movie. Suddenly it's opening itself to more audiences, and that's the thing nowadays. We used to go on the television, we would get the song on radio, and sometimes you would have a hit just by doing these things, and so that road and that pathway is not available anymore. So we have to look at different ways. How do we reinvent the wheel? How do you get your music out there? And I think that's just the nature of life. You can't stand still, really. You need to keep moving, and that's...
You're definitely not standing still. Again, coming up on the 20th of May here in Stirling, Albert Hall's. Rachel Sage, I believe, special guest also in Stirling. Sandy Tom's going to be joining you as well. They're in Paisley on the 22nd as well. Tickets at wetwetwet.co.uk, sterlingevents.org. Graeme, this has been a thrill, man. This is good. We could talk music for hours, I know, but thank you so much. Really looking forward to the show here in Stirling.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Come along, come and say hello at the gig, and it'd be nice to see you in real life as opposed to celluloid and the screen, man. That seems to be the world nowadays. But yeah, please come along, say hello.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much. Again, Wet, 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 coming up on the 20th of May, right here in Stirling at the Albert Halls. This is Stirling Community Radio, Stirling Talks. We'll be back.